My name is Hannah, and this is my no-buy year. Funny story, this is actually my second time filming this video. The first time I filmed a video duping the vibes of the Safari palette, I tried to do this kind of elaborate system where I filmed two different looks and then I went back and narrated my way through both of the looks. And when I actually uploaded the footage and started trying to piece it all together, it was just a huge mess. It was kind of impossible to edit. And when I finally figured out a way to edit it, I realized that the video itself wasn't actually going to be very useful or very comprehensible. I had just made a poor choice in terms of how I decided to go about the logistics of filming that video. So I will try to grab either some screenshots or some brief footage of the two looks that I filmed when I duped the vibes of this palette the first time, so you can see the looks that I came up with when I was angling towards two slightly more elaborate, exciting, perhaps you could even say editorial Safari palette looks. This time, however, I'm going to learn from my experience. I'm just going to film myself putting on the look and talk about the palette as I go. And I have only about 45 minutes and then I need to get dressed and run out the door to teach a tango class. So this time I'm not only constrained by the fact that I'm only doing one look instead of two, but I'm also constrained by the fact that I want to put something on my eyes that I feel comfortable wearing in a semi-casual setting. I usually try to go for something muted, sophisticated, maybe a little bit playful, but for the most part, casual. Casual, glamour, kind of my thing. Anyway, so I'm duping the vibes in this way. I'm pretending that I have the Safari palette, I own it, and I'm using it to get ready today to go out into the world and teach an afternoon tango class on a Saturday. I'm actually going to go ahead and prime my lids so that I can let the primer set down a little bit while I'm talking about the palette. So in order to dupe the vibes of this palette, I have to ask myself, what are the vibes of this palette? What are the vibes of the Natasha Denona Safari palette? To me, it has two main characteristics that contribute to its overall vibes. One is that it is multicolored. It is a rainbow palette. It has got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, the whole gamut, the whole spectrum, and in that way, it is a very comprehensive palette. However, this palette shows a marked lack of diversity when it comes to tone. And when I say tone, what I mean is the level of saturation of each one of the colors, the amount of gray that is mixed in with each one of the colors. When I look at these eyeshadows, I kind of feel like each and every one of them has been altered with the same Instagram filter. It's very cohesive, it's very calming. They're muted mid-tone colors. It's like a rainbow of muted colors. It reminds me of nothing so much as a collection of paint chips for like a high-end paint company. Like a collection of paint colors that was inspired by colonial style houses in New England or something. You know what I mean? They all just have this sophisticated, muted, calm tone. And I find that really interesting. I admire Natasha Denona for kind of foregrounding a trend. It's like she's pushing this concept of a rainbow of muted colors out into the limelight. She's attempting to be a trendsetter instead of a trend follower, and I can't help but admire her for that. The palette strikes me as the work of an artist that has an agenda, a style agenda. It's saying something about color, and it's suggesting a way in which to think about color for the fall. And I like that, I like it. However, I don't particularly like the idea of working with an all matte palette that has no tonal diversity. I haven't even started creating the look yet, and I don't know what it's gonna look like. Maybe it'll be amazing. I should go ahead and get into the meat of the video, and then after I finish with the look, we will reassess. It's hard to dupe the vibes of a rainbow palette because I'm not going to create a rainbow look today. I'm just going to choose one color story, and there are like 20 potential color stories, maybe even more, because you could combine many different colors in many different ways. Due to the nature of the palette, whatever color story I come up with is going to exclude most of the potential color stories. So that's a little bit awkward. It's kind of hard, but hopefully seeing me go through the process of thinking through the use of this palette will still be instructive. So I'm going to go in with the color that I feel kind of exemplifies this palette for me, which is the color Savannah, the green. The palette is green, the cover is green, and when I heard that Natasha Denona was coming out with a safari palette, I expected it to be packed with greens. I expected it to be a green palette, kind of greens and browns and mustards and kind of dusky, deserty sand colors. I did not expect this. And my feeling when I first saw the whole palette was, where are the greens? So for that reason, I'm gonna stick to the one green that was delivered to us by this palette, and I'm going to go into the color that I have that's the closest match. This is Team Captain. It's a ColourPop single, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pop that right all over my lid. That's probably the first thing I would do if I were gonna build kind of a smudgy, casual green look with the Natasha Denona Safari Palette. Alright, in order to get a little bit smoother of a blend up towards my eyebrows, I'm going to go into one of the cream colored shades. That's what I would be dipping into in the Safari palette. Probably the one that's more yellow toned. I think it's called Oyo. To dupe the vibes of that, I'm taking another ColourPop single. It's called Hear Me Out, and I'm just going to buff out the top edges of that shadow using the same fluffy brush. I'm actually bringing this down into the inner corner, the whole area of the inner corner all the way up to the brow on this eye as well. I mean, I'm gonna do it on both eyes. I'm doing it on this eye first. That matte fade of like the matte green into the matte cream is really giving me Safari palette vibes. All right, I need to deepen up the outer corner a little bit. I'm not usually one to mix purple with green. Purple and green are almost opposite each other on the color wheel, and I know that if I blend them into each other, I will get brown. But today I'm kind of okay with that because I'm not trying to create a purple look. I just actually think that the kind of brown that the purple will create when it mixes with the green might be a super interesting tone to have in the outer corner of my eye. So instead of going in with one of the browns to deepen out my outer corner, I'm going to go in with the closest thing I have to Marsal, which is the one in the middle of the bottom row. This is a Makeup Forever eyeshadow. It's M928 is the number, and I'm going to use that on a pencil brush in my outer corner and on my lash line. Now I'm going to buff that out and try to get it to blend a little more with the green. It actually showed up quite purple. It's holding its own perhaps a little bit more than I wanted it to. So I'm going to try to tone it down a little bit, buff it out, and buff it a little bit up above my crease. I have hooded eyes, so I usually do that with a darker shade. But again, it's not really darker. That's the thing. That's the thing about this palette. It's the same because they're all the same. So it's not really giving me the dimension that I crave. It's just a different color. But it's almost like if you were to take a black and white picture of me, it would look like it's all one color. So in theory, I would use a purple like this to deepen up my outer corner, but it's not really working in contrast with the green. So I'm getting kind of this tonally muddy look. It's interesting though, and I definitely feel like it's Safari palette inspired. All right, I'm gonna stick with that. I don't wanna go too overboard for today. I am gonna dab a little bit more of Team Captain onto my lids with my finger, just to try to get it to be a little bit more pigmented. And then I'm gonna take some Team Captain onto my lower lash line. All right, I'm not sure whether it looks editorial or it looks like both of my eyes have been bruised. In order to encourage the impression of the former, I'm going to go in with a cream-colored eyeliner on my waterline. And I'm gonna tight line with brown. Now I'm going to layer on a bunch of mascara. Actually, I'm going to use two things that if you've been following along, you'll know I didn't have and wouldn't have been allowed to buy. One is a lash primer from L'Oreal and the other is a brown mascara also from L'Oreal. The reason I have these is that they were sent to me in a care package from a subscriber. Tara from Canada, thank you so much. I have sent you a letter in response in the mail, but there's a chance that this video will go up before you receive it. It was incredibly shocking and incredibly special to receive that package in the mail, so thank you so much. Those of you who have been following me since the beginning will get a kick out of this. I opened this beautiful package from Tara and it had all of these individually wrapped things in it. And when I got to the bottom of the package after I had taken out all of the individual things, guess what was down there? Kitchen tongs, and they're really, really good ones. Nice and springy and grippy and amazing. And I have used them every day since I opened that care package. It was like February when I mentioned that my kitchen tongs had broken and that I wasn't allowed to buy any new ones because of my no-buy year. It was so long ago, months ago, and she remembered and she sent them to me. Thank you so much. I actually cried. When these tongs came out of that box, I shed a tear or two, I must confess. It really drove home how real you all are, and I know you're real. I read your comments, I love responding to you, I love being connected to you, but this changed something for me about what I think I'm doing here. I'm gonna cry now. Tara, thank you for the tongs, thank you for the brown mascara, and for everything. I will be incorporating some reviews of those products that were gifted to me in the coming months. Tara lives in Canada, so she sent me some things that I've never heard of, and those will be really fun to review. Let's get on with it. I have to go teach my class. So I'm gonna start with this lash primer. I'm gonna give that primer a minute to dry, and actually while it dries, I'm gonna prime my skin. And even though my eyebrows haven't been dyed in a really long time and are getting quite pale and sparse, I'm just gonna brush them up with gel and leave them like that today. I feel like that's very Natasha Denona. And the mascara. Alright, and now I'm going to clean up and zhuzh up my skin a little bit. I'm going to try to get it as fresh and healthy and glowy as possible, again to reinforce the impression that this slightly bruised looking eye is an intentional choice and not a result of having been punched. And that is it. This is an example of the kind of eye look that I would come up with for a little bit of a smoked out daytime situation if I owned an all matte muted rainbow palette like the Safari palette. But in order to do it, I didn't need to buy that palette. I was able to create this look from the eyeshadows that I already have and dupe the vibes, I feel, very successfully. And not only that, but I think that I could dupe the vibes of the 20 or 30 other kinds of color stories that someone could come up with using this palette. Again, I'll insert either photographs or clips of the other two looks that I came up with. Those were looks that I created just playing around in the evening time. I wasn't going anywhere and I didn't feel like it needed to be daytime appropriate or even party appropriate or anything. I was just playing. So especially the second look, the one using the red and the purple, is a little bit more of a statement look, I think, than the looks that I would realistically be using this palette to create if I owned it. But to be honest, and this isn't speaking to this palette in general, but just for me, if I'm gonna do a statement look, I'm gonna use shimmer. And honestly, if I'm gonna do a grungy daytime look, I'm gonna be using shimmers. I am tempted to grab kind of a grungy shimmery green and dab it across the top of this look. I just feel like the dimension that you can get with a little bit of reflect goes a long way towards making this kind of look have the impression that is the impression that I want to project with the creative looks that I do on my eyes. So that's something I don't think I would have said before. I was interested in the idea of an all matte palette. I could understand why people were excited about it. And I don't think that before I duped the vibes of this, I would have been able to say, you know, an all matte palette isn't for me, and especially not an all matte rainbow palette. But at this point, having duped the vibes, I know that for sure. So that's another really good reason for duping the vibes. I think that previously when I duped the vibes of the Jaclyn Hill Vault and when I duped the vibes of the Norvina palette, I did it in order to learn that I could create all of the looks that those palettes offer using what I already have. And in those contexts, it was because I wanted to create all of the looks that those palettes had to offer. But today I've learned that you can also dupe the vibes in order to find out if you actually like what a palette has to offer. As always, I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of the Safari palette, and if you've tried duping the vibes, which color story did you go with? Or even if you haven't done that yet, if you take a look at this palette, which color story are you drawn to? Like, which are the colors that you like? And do you already have shadows in your collection that you could use to make looks that have the same vibes as the looks that those shadows would create? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll remember to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.